bustling city. Some really good numbers tonight, so really pleased to see you all on there. Had a bit of feedback from episode one. Everyone seems to have really enjoyed that. A couple of people reaching out to us on LinkedIn, commenting on our posts. Just keeping out on those, keep engaging with those. And a big thank you for your time again. We appreciate it. It's a big commitment of your evenings twice a week. A couple of you, I just wanted to touch on a couple of admin points. A couple of you have emailed me asking about certificates. I'll just reiterate that myself and Patrick have discussed, and we would like to see people have attended at least 8 out of the 10 sessions. And then we will be able to put those numbers together, see who's attended what sessions, and then send you out a certificate of attendance, which will say how many of the sessions you have attended. If you've got any issues with attendance or with links, please drop me an email to my office at citycentury.co.uk email, and we can try and sort those out for you. In your email for the joining link, I should have sent you a timetable which gives you all of your sessions and when you need to be clicking on the link. So just refer to that. We're running every Monday and every Wednesday from 5 until 6 o'clock roughly. And other than that, today's session is going to be led by the brilliant CMS. They're going to be focusing on not only what is London, what is the City of London. I know that Aoife from A&O Sherman touched on the square mile a little bit on Monday, so we're going to delve a little bit deeper into that and explore the city. So without further ado, I'll pass over to the CMS team. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I think we are just working out how to get our slides on the screen. I think they're just loading at the moment, aren't they? So I can just give a little bit of an introduction. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Sophia and I'm one of the Emerging Talent Advisors here at CMS. So in today's session, we'll be exploring what people really mean when they talk about the City of London. So we're going to look into its history, how it's evolved to be one of the world's leading financial districts. It really is a place where global business happens every day. But before we dive in, I'm really pleased to be joined by some of my colleagues today. So I'll first hand over to my colleague Sanjida just to give a little bit of an introduction to herself.
Thanks, Sophia. Hi, everyone. It's great to have you on the call with us. My name's Sanjida. I'm the Emerging Talent Manager here at CMS, and I manage our legal apprenticeships at the firm. And I'm really pleased to introduce 4 of our first-year solicitor apprentices who will be delivering this session for you. So I'll hand over to Eliza to do a quick intro. Over to you, Eliza.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Eliza, and I'm in the Asset Finance Division of IPATH, which stands for Energy Infrastructure Projects and Asset Finance. And like Sanjida said, I'm a first-year apprentice. I'll hand over to Sarah.
Hi everyone, my name's Sarah, and like Eliza, I'm a first-year apprentice here at CMS, and I'm in the Corporate Transactions team. And that's a bit on me. And I'll hand over to Hannah now.
Hi everyone, I'm also a first-year apprentice. My name is Hannah. Currently in the real estate transactions team, finishing up my first year, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So over to Latifa.
Hi everyone, I'm also a first year solicitor apprentice in the insurance and reinsurance team, also enjoying myself, getting involved with cyber insurance, and I'll hand over back to Sarah Gida.
I can take it from here. It's just to say that this session is designed to be as interactive as possible. So please do pop your questions into the chat, or there'll be an opportunity for a Q&A at the end. So to kick us off, I'm going to hand over straight to Hannah, who will begin.
Okay, amazing. I don't know if the slides are up because I can't see them, but I'm happy to start.
Okay. We'll just try and bring the slides up, Hannah, for you.
Okay, perfect.
Just bear with us for a moment. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Hopefully everyone can see that now.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. If we could go forward, like I think 2 slides, that's where it starts. Yeah. Okay, so hi everyone. We're going to start off with a bit of a mini scavenger about the square mile of the City of London. I want you guys to kind of, first of all, have a think about what comes to your mind when you first think of the City of London. Any kind of particular stations, any kind of particular firms. What do you associate when you think about the City of London or that part of central London? You can drop it in the chat. And on the next slide, you have a bit of a map if you can do that, and you'll be able to visualize what we mean when we say the square mile.
I'll just drop in now to everyone that's joined. For safeguarding, we don't have the chat function, so if you want to pop your answers in the Q&A, I'll then feed them back to the CMS team. If you are struggling to find that, it should be on the black bar at the bottom of your screen. Click the three dots for more, and then there's a Q&A section there, so I can put those in there and I can feed them back to the team.
Perfect. Thanks, Finley. Okay, someone said big companies, Canary Wharf and Liverpool Street. Interestingly, Canary Wharf doesn't really make it into the square mile. I don't know if you can see, which I was quite surprised by myself because I think of that as well. Liverpool Street, yeah, St. Paul's. Canary Wharf is in Tower Hamlets. Yeah.
Anna, if I may just drop in at this point, speaking as the Chief Executive of the City of London Law Society, we have included Canary Wharf in our definition of the City of London, including so that the firms out there pay us membership fees. But we've sort of we've redrawn the map a little bit with the Sharpie pen in Donald Trump fashion.
Okay. A global center of finance, yeah. Okay. Those are some really good answers. So if you go into the next slide, you can kind of see a few of the top UK law firms and where they sit within the square mile. Interesting, you can see that a lot of those firms are quite next to each other. There's a lot more. I've only included a few just so that you can visualize. But today I'm going to talk about why so many major law firms choose to base themselves in the City of London, why not other parts of London, for example, like South London or parts of West London. So I'm going to begin by looking at which firms are located there, the type of work that they do, before exploring the reasons behind this concentration of legal services. So the City of London is widely regarded as the United Kingdom's principal commercial legal hub. So I know someone said it's financial, it's also legal, among other things. And it's home to many of the most prestigious and internationally recognized law firms, including top 10 UK law firms, some of which you can see over there. And these are firms that typically specialize in areas such as banking and finance, capital markets, mergers and acquisitions, financial regulation, etc. And in general, city law firms advise large corporate clients, financial institutions, multinational organizations, and they frequently act on complex cross-border transactions which involve multiple jurisdictions and very significant sums of money, as I'm sure you can imagine. So essentially, the nature of this work sets city firms apart from high street practices and distinguishes the city as a legal centre of global importance. So in the same way that a lot of the high street firms, perhaps near where you live, do very different work compared to the complex work that we do in private practice, you also need that kind of location difference as well to distinguish the two. So now I'll move on to why law firms locate in the City of London specifically. So, oh no, still the same slide. The principal explanation for this concentration of legal services lies in the concept of clustering. So for those that don't know, it's not a common concept or phrase, but clustering occurs when businesses within the same or closely related industries group together within a particular location, as you can see on the map there. In the city, this means that law firms, banks, insurers, and other professional service firms all operate within close proximity to one another, and it creates a sort of mutually reinforcing ecosystem, a mutualistic relationship for those who study biology. The next reason would be proximity to financial clients. So perhaps the most significant factor is the proximity to key clients here, as City of London is home to a lot of major banks, investment firms, insurance firms, and because these institutions are the primary clients of commercial law firms, being physically close to them allows lawyers to work more efficiently, build stronger professional relationships, and remain closely involved in high-value transactions as they develop. It's really important within law firms that you have reoccurring work as well. You don't sort of want to work for one client and that's the end of it and you never hear from them again. You want to have a lot of consistent work from the same clients and many matters for them. So being in close proximity really helps with that. I know that at CMS, for example, we have a few of our clients literally within the same building as them. We share, which makes things just so much easier. If you want to schedule a meeting, you can do it in person, as opposed to having a lot of meetings online nowadays. And it helps create that kind of personal relationship that you know each other. You're not just solely having a transactional relationship. Potentially even friendships can bloom from that too, you never know. That moves me on to networking and professional relationships as the next point. So being based in dense business environments allows lawyers to meet clients and potential clients too, face to face, and develop those professional networks, collaborate with each other, and allow lawyers to kind of secure that long-term client connection. The next reason I would say would be access to talent. So this kind of relates more to you guys as students because of how London provides access to such a deep pool of highly skilled graduates and international legal professionals as well. The best candidates, which I'm sure many of you guys are often drawn to city law firms because of the quality of work on offer, and also the firms benefit too because they're in a location that attracts ambitious and talented individuals from across the UK and beyond, which makes it significantly easier for firms to recruit and retain top legal talent, because it's not just you guys who are wanting to work at these amazing firms, it's also the firms that are kind of scouting for you too. There's also the prestige and the reputation as well, which brings me on to my final point. A City of London name itself carries substantial prestige and reputation. The second that you hear that a firm is based in Bank or Canary Wharf or Barbican, it speaks for itself. It enhances a firm's reputation. It signals the delivery of high quality legal services, and it helps to attract high value clients. So rightly or wrongly, a city location is often taken as a marker of a firm's standing and capability, particularly in the eyes of international clients who might not be familiar with the nuances of the UK legal market. So that's a bit from me. I'm now going to hand over to Sarah, who's going to talk to you guys a little bit about the history.
Hello, everyone. So moving on to some history, let's go back about 2,000 years. So the City of London started as a Roman settlement called Londinium, and the Romans built it here because of the River Thames, and this was the perfect place for transporting goods and trade. After the Romans left, the area didn't just disappear. It grew into a medieval trading city, so merchants and craftsmen began to settle here, and it became one of the most important places in England for buying and selling goods. So here's the key part. Over time, the city gained a lot of independence from the crown. So it was allowed to govern itself through its own institutions. And this is quite unusual for a city. And that independence has been preserved over centuries now. So today, even though London has massively expanded around it, the City of London is still treated as a distinct area with its own traditions and governance. And over time, it shifted from trading physical goods to trading money. And now it's one of the city's leading centers, the world's leading centers for banking, investment, insurance, and legal services, of course. And the same place that used to trade wool and spices is now dealing with global finance. So the city has constantly evolved, but it's always been about trade and business, ultimately. So now I'm going to be moving on to some key institutions in the City of London. Next slide, please. So moving on, alongside its history, the City of London has also got some really unique institutions that help it function today. And a lot of them have actually been around for hundreds of years. So first, we've got the Lord Mayor of the City of London. And this is a very historic role, which dates back centuries. And today it's very focused on business and finance. So the Lord Mayor represents the UK's financial and professional services sector internationally. So they travel around the world to meet governments and businesses and pretty much encourage them to invest in London. And they also support major events in the city, which includes the Lord Mayor's Show, which is a well-known annual celebration of the role and its history. We've then got the City of London Corporation, which is the governing body of the city, and it's one of the oldest local governments in the world. It's responsible for things like maintaining infrastructure, supporting businesses, and managing public spaces. But what really makes it quite different from other councils is how it operates. So, for example, businesses in the city are actually allowed to vote in local elections and not just the residents. And that reflects the fact that the city is mainly a place where people work rather than live. So it's designed to support businesses in a way that most local councils aren't. Next up, we've got Guildhall, which is the historic headquarters of the City of London Corporation. And it's been the centre of decision-making for centuries now. And it's still used today for official meetings, ceremonies, and major events. It's a really good example of how history is still very present in how the city operates today. Finally, we've got livery companies, and these originally started as medieval trade guilds, with each one representing a specific profession. So, for example, goldsmiths, fishmongers, or drapers. They play a big role in setting standards, training apprentices, and protecting their trades. So today they don't really regulate professions in the same way, but they do still play a really important role. So they focus on charity work, education, networking, and supporting different industries. Some still even have links to modern apprenticeships. So, for example, the City of London Solicitors Company supports legal education and access to the profession. So overall, that's what makes the city really unique, is the fact that many of these historic institutions still exist and are still very active, but they've evolved over time, of course, to support what is now a very modern and global financial centre. So now moving on to Latifa to talk about the city's impact.
Yep, thanks, Sarah, for that. So for this specimen, can everyone think of the City of London as an engine that's powering a huge part of the UK economy? So this tiny area, known as the square mile, generates over 100 billion a year, which is incredible for just 1 square mile. When thinking about how we got here, it's important to look at London's story. So we know that it's been shaped by centuries of globalization. So looking at its position between Asia and the Americas, plus strong laws and stable politics, gave London the cutting edge position for trade. This helped London specialize and kind of find out what it's good at and become world leading in these sectors. One of the biggest changes was jobs. So there was a big transition after the Industrial Revolution because manufacturing jobs fell by over 85% since 1971. And at the same time, jobs in real estate, finance, technology, and legal services have grown massively. So London has moved away from this heavy industry and towards more of, I would say, knowledge-based work. And we're going to see how this impacted the city to grow. So if London is the engine, as I said, then trade can be seen as the fuel. So more trade means bigger markets, more specialization, and importantly, more growth. So the openness of trade really does matter in this situation. So where does this trade go? Europe is the biggest destination for the UK service exports, and North America would be seen as next. So the US, indeed, like the US, is the single biggest market, but other important partners for us includes Germany, France, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. Now, who are seen as our biggest competitors? I would say cities like New York, Shanghai, and Tokyo are all our very major rivals. Shanghai may make more money, but overall, London can still seem more favorable for international businesses. I would say this is because London is trusted for its legal systems and its global financial rules. For instance, it uses English, which makes it more accessible to pass deals across multi-jurisdictions and countries. And it has long-standing links with investors and companies from all around the world, which makes London and the City of London very unique. The City of London also has really strong matters in terms of how it values services like finance, law, and insurance. So even if another city can be seen as bigger, London and the City of London is still the place that many global firms choose when they want trusted systems and expert services, and more importantly, access to these global markets. So this is why London's overall real output was projected to grow by 1.9%, rebounding from the post-pandemic growth that was seen after lockdown. So the main sectors that kind of contribute the most towards this would be seen as through the financial and the insurance activities. They make up over 66% of the City of London's total output. I would say legal and accounting would be seen as second in terms of the most drivers of the economy in the City of London. So why would you see this as very productive? It would be because London's legal sector serves the whole world. As we mentioned, English law is one of the most widely used systems for international business contracts. Courts, tribunals in London, they all attract global cases. And because people trust the expertise and the certainty and the enforceability, they end up generating more work. And of course, attracting work across multiple different jurisdictions. For example, CMS, which has offices in over 70 countries. So you would often see yourselves working across deals, expanding multi-jurisdictions. And if we said that finance is the fuel and London is the engine, we can see the legal sector as what is the engineer that's holding everything together. Every IPO, every cross-border merger, every syndicated loan, or Lloyd's contract depends on legal infrastructure. So, and London does provide this at a world-class level. So the bottom line here is that the City of London runs on finance, but it is essentially built on the law. And I'll pass over to Eliza for a very exciting quiz.
Thank you, Latifa. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at a couple of pictures, and I would like you all to say in like the Q&A section whether or not you think this is in the City of London or not. Next slide. And bonus points if you can identify where it is. Okay, looking at this picture, do you guys think this is in the City of London? I'll wait for a couple more answers. Okay, so majority of you guys have said no, which is correct. And some of you have also identified that it's Canary Wharf, which yes, correct again. Moving on. What about this picture? Okay, I'm seeing a mix of answers for this one. Okay, I would say it's 50-50, but I'll wait a couple more seconds. Okay, so the answer for this one is yes, it is in the City of London. And as someone mentioned, yes, it's St. Paul's. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Do we think this is in the City of London or not? Yes, you guys are correct. This is in the City of London. And it's not St. Paul's. Oh, wait, I think that was the first one. It's the Bank of England. Okay, moving on. Finally, is this in the City of London? I'm sure this is quite obvious what it is. Okay, so for this one, most of you guys are actually incorrect. It's not in the City of London. It's in the Borough of Lewisham. Okay, thank you. Moving on to Sophia to give the closing.
Perfect, thank you. So you might be wondering, what does learning about the City of London actually have to do with you becoming a solicitor, and what routes are available to you if this is something that you might be interested in? Well, you may be aware by now that places like the City of London rely heavily on a skilled workforce. That's essentially what keeps them growing and evolving. And apprenticeships are a really practical way for getting people into different sectors. They're a way to build the skills that we need, and they're a way to contribute to long-term economic growth. So bringing that a little bit closer to home, as we are a law firm in the City of London, I wanted to just talk a little bit about CMS and the apprenticeships that we offer. So we are a future-facing organisation made up of independent law firms. So as I mentioned, we do have a London office in the city, but we also have 92 offices across more than 50 countries with over 7,200 lawyers worldwide. But I guess more importantly for you today, I wanted to speak a little bit about our solicitor apprenticeship programme that we offer, not only in our London office, but also across some of our regional offices. So if you just go on to the next slide. So you'll probably be familiar, but a solicitor apprenticeship is obviously a different route into law. Like many city firms, we offer our own programme. It is a 6-year programme, and it's split between 4 days of working in the office and then 1 day of studying towards, for the first part, your LLB law degree, and then for the remaining 2 years, you'll be studying towards your SQE. So obviously it's a really popular way of qualifying as a solicitor, because one of of the major benefits is that you'll have no student debt. You obviously earn a salary from day one, so you're earning whilst you're learning, and then you really do have an early exposure to high quality legal work from the very beginning. So how it works here at CMS is for the first 4 years, you'll sit in a different team, and then for the remaining 2 years, every 6 months, you will rotate teams. You'll also have the opportunity to go on things like client secondments and international secondments as well. And across the course of the programme, you'll be supported by not only a day-to-day supervisor and potentially a secondary supervisor, but you'll also have a dedicated skills advisor at the University of Law, and of course support from us over on the emerging talent side of things. Just a little bit of background on how our application process works. So we operate on a 4-stage application process. The first stage being an initial application, the second stage being a Watson-Glaser critical thinking test, and the third stage being a video interview. And if you're successful for all 3 of these stages, you will then be invited to a final assessment day in person in one of our offices. And how that works, similar across most law firms, but it will be a group exercise, an in-person case study, and also an individual interview. So that's a little bit of an overview of our solicitor apprenticeship programme. What I now wanted to do is to allow you to speak with our apprentices themselves. So they're going to give a little bit of an overview of their role, of their journey into law, what it's like day to day, and the benefits of challenges of working in a city law firm. So I'm happy to hand over to whoever wants to speak first to give a bit of an introduction to themselves.
I'm happy with going first. So hi, I'm Hannah, as I mentioned before. A bit of an overview into my journey into law. I would say I think I first started to consider it when I was about in year 10. All the teachers and everyone was kind of deciding, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? All of these kinds of questions that you get pressured with during secondary. And I kind of had no clue. And so I spoke with my friends, I spoke with my family. I looked at the skills that I had, the things that I liked. I enjoyed reading. I was part of my school's debate club. So I think my dad or someone must have asked me, why don't you consider law? And at the time, I didn't know that apprenticeships existed at all. I thought it was just university and then training contract. But then when I got into sixth form, interestingly enough, one of the 4th-year apprentices visited my school as an alumni, and she gave a presentation about CMS and the CMS Connect work experience program that we offer, and apprenticeships as a whole as well. So that's when I kind of started getting serious about the process, and I realized apprenticeships might actually be for me. It seemed kind of like a cheat code, like you get to earn, you learn, you essentially become a lawyer. In the same way, it takes roughly the same amount of time. And even now, when I speak to my supervisor and colleagues that unfortunately didn't have the apprenticeship available at the time that they were applying for training contracts, they said that if they had the chance, they would have done an apprenticeship too. So all of the dots were kind of connecting in my head, and I decided this was the route for me. And currently I'm in real estate transactions, as I mentioned before. I'm really enjoying it so far. The type of work that I get into are leases, licenses. A lot of the things that I do is residential, which is quite interesting because you'll come across properties and you'll sometimes be walking by and be like, I worked on that. Oh, that's one of the clients that we have. And it's kind of rewarding to actually see the work that you're working on in real life. I don't think you get that in a lot of teams, but that's something that real estate offers. In terms of one of the biggest benefits of the apprenticeship and working in at such a young age, I'm 19, by the way, would definitely be the pro bono work and some of the opportunities that we get here. So, for example, I've only been here for about 10 months, but already I've been able to work at the Islington Law Centre as part of the pro bono work that we offer there. So helping people with employment cases, landlord dispute cases, where you're actually the person giving the advice instead of being the one who's a bit more junior. So it gives you a lot of responsibility from early on, which is quite interesting. It's a bit of a challenge as well sometimes, but definitely rewarding to be able to connect with people who have real and kind of emotional cases sometimes. And one thing that I initially struggled with in the beginning, I think, was definitely imposter syndrome. I think it's quite a common one. It's very normal. I think definitely realizing the more that I went on that you're always going to have a sort of feeling of am I doing the right thing? Do I belong here? That kind of feeling will follow you throughout your apprenticeship and throughout your legal career, I think, when I've spoken to seniors. But it does minimize as you go, and that's the important thing to remember. So that's a bit about me.
I'm happy to go next. So, like I've said, my name is Eliza and I'm in the asset finance team. A bit about asset finance, basically leases for ships, yachts, planes, trains, and just a varied amount of things. And what I work with specifically is airlines. I would say my journey into law was pretty much traditional route. I took a gap year. I thought about what I wanted to do, and then I decided on law. And then I looked into apprenticeships. I applied for finance apprenticeships. I applied for legal apprenticeships, and luckily I just really liked CMS, so I decided to accept it. But before that, I basically tried every other career. I tried med, I tried dent, I tried finance. I even went to like really random talks for physics, and yeah, I went to everything. But in the end, law was the one that kind of stood out to me. And I would say the biggest benefit of obviously doing an apprenticeship, aside from the fact that you don't have to pay student debt and you earn a salary, is the people skills that you learn, the social skills that you learn, the hard and soft skills. They mention that when you're at the firm, but you don't realize the outcome of it until, for example, I've been there for 10 months and I'm a completely different person now than I was during my gap year. A lot more responsibilities, a lot more maturity that comes in emotionally and intelligently. So yeah, and I would say the biggest, sorry, what was the last question? I don't remember.
Just around any sort of challenges.
Oh, okay. Challenges. I would say the biggest challenge, it might be, this is a bit of a silly one, but this is obviously our first summer without a summer holiday. So I guess adjusting to the fact that you're not going to have the same schedule as your uni friends is the biggest adjustment for me. For example, like my entire friendship group is at uni. They get this whole summer period off and they had like half terms in between. So I think that was the biggest adjustment. But I got over that pretty quickly when they started complaining about how broke they were. So that's that was a benefit. But yeah, I'd say that was probably my biggest challenge. And I'll move on to Sarah Latifa to take it away.
Yeah, I don't mind going next. So my name is Latifa. I'm currently in the insurance and reinsurance team. And what interested me in law initially was starting my own business. I used to take part in young enterprise competitions. I loved the whole business side of things. I launched my business across like 6 different schools, and I ran into a legal problem, which was when running a business, you can sell shares in your company. And one guy basically decided to buy out every single share, which meant that no one else can actually make profit. And that kind of scared me and led me to draft something called a shareholders agreement, which is a lot more company law specific, so more of what Sarah does. And seeing how you can make solutions to solve legal problems got me thinking about law. And then I started applying to different law work experiences, and that's what led me into law. I can kind of see that there have been quite a few Q&A questions, and I saw one that was really interesting, which I thought of answering. Someone asked, what was it? What skills or qualities do you think helped you succeed in the application process beyond grades? I would say your unique perspective and any skills you acquired outside of law. So I think your hobbies, your interests, your extracurriculars really did shape what kind of an applicant you are, because often, and I'm sure early talent will reiterate this, everyone will write, I've always wanted to be a lawyer, I've been inspired by the law. And it's while it might be true, it's a lot more valuable to kind of link skills that you've done, and whether or not it was legal work experience, it could be like charity bake sales, you could be, I don't know, head captain of your school. It could be anything that you find interesting that led to you acquiring a skill or thinking outside the box. And I think staying true to who you are and using what you've got is the most resourceful thing you can do. And someone else asked about how an apprenticeship compares to a law degree in terms of qualifications you get. So we all get the same qualification at NLB, which early talent will go over, but you get the same exact credentials. We just study with the University of Law. Everything is seen as the same, but you'd get 6 extra years of work experience, which I think is pretty valuable nowadays. And yeah, and in terms of LNATs, of what was already reviewed was that you do a Watson Glaser, which is sort of like a verbal reasoning equivalent. And I'll pass over to Sarah.
Hi everyone. So again, I'm Sarah, and a quick reminder, I'm currently working in a team called Corporate Transactions, and more specifically, I sit in a team that focuses on public M&A and capital markets. So pretty much what we do is help companies when they're buying or merging with other companies, or when they're raising money by selling shares to the public. So for example, if you ever hear in the news that one company is taking over another, there's a pretty good chance that lawyers are behind the scenes working on the deal. So my journey is kind of similar to everyone else's, but also a bit different. I think I've always known I've wanted to do law or be a lawyer, and honestly mainly because it just sounded cool, and I'm glad they actually turned out that way as well. But I've also always just been fascinated by how the law is so ingrained in our daily lives, and I just knew I wanted a career in that because it helped really I think my career made me more reflective of sort of how the law is ingrained in our daily routines. For example, contract law is pretty much everywhere. When you do start studying it, it's really interesting. So I think one of my favorite things about my job is actually getting to work on huge deals and then seeing them announced publicly. And knowing that you've actually played a small part in making that happen, it's definitely one of the most rewarding aspects of the job, I would say. And you definitely sort of reflect and feel really proud of yourself in the moment. I wanted to speak on some misconceptions around the apprenticeship route, and mainly around the social life. So I think you'll go on TikTok sort of looking up degree apprenticeships, and you'll often hear that degree apprentices don't have much of a social life because they're either working or studying. But I can definitely say that is very much far from the truth. If anything, I've got a bit more of a social life now that I can actually finance it. And not to mention, I think the firm you apply to and your working culture definitely makes a difference. So, for example, this week, most of the first year apprentices are off to Germany to play football for the CMS World Cup, which is very fun. So that's definitely one of the biggest misconceptions about the apprenticeship route, which I would not take to heart when applying. So in terms of challenges I've faced, I'd definitely say it's not exactly easy. It's not meant to be. You're working and studying. That doesn't sound very appealing, I know, but it is definitely very rewarding. It also teaches you some really important skills that you end up using in your daily life, whether that's time management, organization, prioritization. It's really developed me as a person, and I'm very glad to have taken the route. And going back, I would have chosen this route 1000%. But yeah, that's a bit on me. Handing back to early talent, or maybe some questions.
That's fab. Well, I'm happy if the City Century team are happy for us to take some of the questions from the Q&A. So this can be about what you've heard on the City of London topic, or anything about apprenticeships. You obviously have our 4 apprentices here. I'm not sure, Finley, if you wanted to ask the questions, or equally, if any of our apprentices wanted to pick one of the questions that they'd like to answer.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much to the CMS team, all of you, for a brilliant session. I know I've certainly, going into my apprenticeship, I feel like I've certainly learned things about the area I'm going to be working in. So that was really, really interesting. Thanks so much. Thank you as well to our participants for some brilliant questions. We've had over 125 questions through the episode so far, so going really well. And I've tried to answer the ones that are sort of a yes no one in the chat, but a few that are flying around. I think the main one for our apprentices is talking about what sets you out in an application process. Well, what kind of things were you doing sort of we're talking to students maybe year 10, 11, 12. What sort of things were you doing as students at that point that you feel set you in good stead for the application processes for solicitor apprenticeships? I don't know who wants to sort of jump in and give an answer to that, and I'll continue to answer a few in the chat.
I'll take this one. I get this question a lot. What sets me out on application? And I think I've answered it maybe 100 times, but my advice has always been find your niche. I think what made me stand out in my interviews was in every single one of my interviews, I was always recommending Notion to the partners. I really like Notion, and a lot of them hadn't heard of it before. So I would just talk about it, and they were always so interested because it was such a random thing to talk about. And also I talked about matching on my interviews, and it tied into the question. I forgot what the question was, but make yourself, like, you can just show your personality in interviews. It doesn't have to be this like black and white. They ask you a question, you answer. Like this, they deal with that on a day-to-day basis. So just be yourself. They know your age, and that's always been my advice. Just be as niche as possible. And with your experiences, no matter how irrelevant an experience might seem to you, trust me, there's a way you can spin it. I mentioned things from year 8, I mentioned things from year 10, year 11, year 12, like really random experiences. I somehow just brought it into the question, or I somehow found a way to mention it, because it shows that you have like adaptable skills, and just transferable skill set in general. And a question that I saw in the chat that I wanted to answer was what A levels do you have to do for an apprenticeship? And I think I'm the best person to answer this because my A levels are very different. My colleagues have done like very humanities like based subjects. I did biology, chemistry, and maths, so I was on a med route. I was very sciencey, and obviously, and for a degree like law where you're doing a lot of writing, a lot of research, it doesn't really fit in. But the way I spun that in interview was that in math there's a lot of problem solving to do, there's a lot of writing to do in biology, chemistry, and there's a lot of just having a problem and trying to solve it. And that's basically what the law is, that you have a problem, you're trying to solve it, and that's how I tied it in. So you don't need specific A levels at all. You don't even need, like, GCSEs is a real thing, but you don't need any of that. Just make yourself make yourself so moldable that you can just go to any degree. And then obviously, like, you're trying to do law, so in the interview tie it into law. So yeah.
That's great, thank you, Eliza. One for a couple for the early careers team. So we've got a few questions about what does the test include when you're applying for a solicitor apprenticeship, the online tests, how can we best prepare for this? And then also sort of got quite a few people talking about the competitiveness of the apprenticeship route versus the university route. I was going to reply to this one, but I wanted to double check it. So from my reading, is it something like with sort of the high level of applicants for quite a low amount of jobs, are we looking at about 0.1% acceptance rate at firms? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, so I'll tackle the first part of the question. In terms of our testing, so we do use the Watson-Glaser critical thinking test, and that is at stage 2 of the application process. In terms of best ways to prepare, we do have a practice test available on our website, and you can use that multiple times. And I know that there are sort of YouTube videos out there and sort of guides to help practice when approaching the Watson-Glaser test. And then to answer the second part of your question, in terms of how competitive the programme is, it is competitive. I will be honest with you. We do have a limited number of places, and we look for around a 2% conversion from the amount of applications we get to those on our actual assessment day. In terms of the numbers that we take, we don't have a set amount because it varies year to year, depending on business needs. So I wouldn't have a set conversion rate for that. But you should not be deterred at all. I would say, you should absolutely go for it and apply, not just at CMS, of course, but any apprenticeship that you're interested in. I would strongly encourage you to do it. And you also get experience as well. Perhaps if you go for an assessment centre and you weren't successful at that stage, you can use what you've learnt for future assessment centres as well.
That's great. Thank you, Sophia. And I think it's also, sorry, go on, Patrick.
If I may come in at that point, we know it's more difficult to get a solicitor apprenticeship at a city centre firm than it is to get a law place at Oxford and Cambridge. That having been said, we do have well over 130 jobs every year. So there are real jobs and we are looking for real people, and it's only the people that apply that end up with those roles. So do go for them. And I'm sure, Latifa and Elisa would confirm they probably didn't think for sure that they were going to get these roles until they started in the process. So I hope that's right. I hope didn't go, I'm going to win it, definitely. But do definitely give it a go. These are real jobs. We really want people to have them, and we really want you to apply.
And I think I'll just sort of add to, there's a couple of misconceptions about you have to decide, I'm going to university or I'm going to do an apprenticeship. So many candidates, when I was applying, people who will be incoming next year, dual track their applications as well. So you're applying for maybe 15 solicitor apprenticeships and you've also got your 5-year university going through the UCAS application form. It's not a hard and fast, if you're applying to university, a law firm is going to sit you down in an interview and say, well, I can see you've applied for Manchester University, so why have you done that if you want to work for us? You can dual track those, and all you're trying to do as a candidate is you're trying to maximize your chances, and that's more than fair enough. One potentially to come back to the apprentices on is talking about work experience, both placements that potentially are offered by law firms, but also how do you go about getting maybe virtual work experience? I know that we've done work with Forage before, and there's a lot of great programs through there. And then also, how do we take transferable skills? So for example, to use myself, I was in the Air Cadets for 5 years. How do you then go in an interview and use those sorts of skills that you've learned from a football team or you've learned from extracurriculars and use those in an interview? So I'm not sure which one of the apprentices wants to pick that question up.
I'm happy to.
Thank you, Hannah.
I think that's a really good question. Regarding work experience, I think a big mistake that people make is assuming that you just need legal work experience. You don't. It's good. It's actually better to have a mix of both legal and non-legal work experience. So for me, I was part of the Sutton Trust Pathways to Law program. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. And through that, I was able to get a lot of legal work experience. So if you can join programs that offer you multiple experiences with different firms, that's great. Through that, I was able to get work experience with firms like D.A. Piper, Devonshire's, and a few more. But then you can also go out of your way, of course, to look at firms that you're interested in on their websites to see when applications are opening and closing. Regarding non-legal work experience, which I think might be just as important, I did quite a lot of volunteering. So at my local youth centre, I helped with homelessness shelters, projects for the elderly and combating loneliness. I also worked at Human Appeal as a team lead, which Eliza did as well, funnily enough. And that's just a global charity where I did a lot of rewarding work, fundraising, things like that. And you'll find that a lot of those soft skills that Finley mentioned, you can find both within your legal and non-legal work experience. The reason why I emphasize non-legal work experience as well is because I think they're definitely downplayed, number one. And number two, you are able to access that kind of personal communication, collaborative, those kinds of skills from those types of work experiences, which I think are definitely invaluable. And then from there, you kind of realize what firms you like. With the legal work experiences, you kind of figure out, oh, I was sat in the litigation team during this work experience. Maybe that's something I'd want to qualify in down the line. Maybe I'd want to have a seat in that during my training contract or my apprenticeship. And I also just wanted to add on to the research and the kind of anxiety about the acceptance of apprenticeships. For me, the way I went about researching firms was I kind of made research posters for every firm that I was applying to for my apprenticeship. So take, for example, CMS, I would have questions like, when are the applications opening? What are their grade requirements? Different headings for the questions that were on the applications and answering those too. But then I also had a personal section for the things that I liked about CMS that I didn't really see at other firms. So any kind of particular pro bono opportunities. Their Muslim network was huge, which was really important for me as a visible Muslim. Things like that. So have things that you've researched about the firm that you personally like, because like I said earlier, it's kind of a two-way relationship. It's not just the firm wanting you, you actually have to want them and have your values aligned with them too. And I would definitely say, again, don't let the low acceptance rate deter you. I think it's something like 0.7% chance to get any apprenticeship, and then I think it's even lower, about 0.4% to get a solicitor apprenticeship specifically. And I just wanted to leave you with something that an apprentice said to me when I was kind of anxious in year 12, I think, or year 13 when I was applying, about the acceptance rate, which is that somebody's going to get that job. Why can't it be you? You can be part of that 0.4%. You can be part of that 0.7% too, which I think is definitely important for you to remember. And the only way that you can get 100% rejected is if you don't apply at all. So take that into consideration as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that, Hannah. Again, one sort of that I guess both early careers and apprentices can touch on is we've had a few questions about your sort of day-to-day and how diverse your day-to-day is. You know, I mean, obviously, as an incoming apprentice, I haven't started my role yet, but the countless apprentices I speak to at events like this always say how dynamic their job is. You know, what one day if you're sat in a disputes team, for example, one day you're taking a bundle to court, the next day you're drafting arguments and you're constantly changing what you're doing. You're meeting with a client potentially. Does one of the apprentices and potentially yourself, Sophia, want to comment on how diverse an apprentice's day-to-day looks?
I'm happy to speak on that a bit, speak on my experience. So I think one of the best bits of my job is that every day is going to be different. It's not a repetitive thing where you come in and expect to do the same type of things over and over again. And I think another important sort of topic to touch on is the fact that as you progress into your apprenticeships, your responsibilities do increase as well. So your day-to-day is going to vary. So you could either be drafting a couple of documents, reviewing some documents, running red lines, so many different things that you could be doing as a first-year apprentice that really do add that value to the team. And I think that is, like I said, the best bit of the job. You don't know what to expect day in and day out. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say. Sophia, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, I was just saying, I guess from our perspective, looking at the fact that you'll be with us for 6 years, we try and place you in a variety of different teams and departments. So you get exposure to transactional work, you get exposure to contentious work, and also advisory work, so that at the end of it, you're able to make an informed decision on what area of the law are you interested in. So that's our kind of perspective, and how we like to structure the apprenticeship program. I don't know if any of our other apprentices wanted to give any perspectives of day-to-day work that they get involved in, or equally happy to take another question, Finley.
Yeah, those are great answers. Thank you. We've got a couple of questions about the university balance, and a lot of people saying, does one day feel like enough? I know I've heard of a couple of firms who, alongside your annual leave, give you a few sort of days if you're coming up to exams or if you're coming up to SQE preparations later down the line, give a bit of extra space there. Could the apprentices sort of comment on how they've found balancing that time? Because obviously you're going through exactly the same process as someone who's going the traditional route, but you're only doing it one day a week. And how are you balancing that, whether you be at BPP or ULaw?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. I think CMS, compared to other firms, are quite generous with their exam leave. I remember talking to another apprentice at another firm, and they don't get exam leave for coursework, which I thought was shocking, in my opinion. But so you get the day of the exam off and the day before. And how I've found that so far has been really accommodating. I think you have plenty of time on the study days, which we take on Fridays at CMS. I found that the more modules that I do, the more closer I am into going into ULaw to study. Up until then, you're happy to study from home, but the more content we do, I found myself preferring to go into the Bloomsbury campus. But there's also a lot of social activities you can do at ULaw, even though we're online students. So I actually took part in the client interviewing competition that was hosted by ULaw, and I was matched up with a second year, and I found it really exciting because you got to debate on a case, sort of like an area that you wouldn't really get to do because I sit in insurance, so I didn't really get to do that much contract corporate level work. So doing that for the client interviewing competition was really exciting. We then won an award as well, which was really fun. So I think, yeah, there's also a summer ball for ULaw, so you get like a lot of a uni experience as well. So the studying side plus the super curricular side both really work well together. And I think if you were considering a solicitor apprenticeship, I would say yes, there will be times where you'll find yourself studying outside of your study day on the Friday, but it would be manageable and you'll have enough exam leave to, and hopefully that you won't need that day extra.
Thanks, Steve. I'm really, really glad you've mentioned the social side as well. I think that's a massive thing for a lot of students who are sort of maybe sort of more like year 12, year 13, who are really debating, do I want the university life or do I want to go straight into work? And sort of that almost FOMO of I don't want to miss out on the social side that all my friends are going to be having. But I mean, if we look at even City Century, on Thursday this week, we've got our session at the Guildhall where we're going to have apprentices coming in and socialising. So you do get those mixed events in a formal setting, and then also when you make connections through there, you've got the informal settings as well. So really, really glad you've mentioned that there is a social side to it as well. It's not just work, work, work like you see maybe in shows like Suits or whatever it might be. Coming towards the end of the webinar.
Oh, Finn, do you mind if I just do you mind if I just jump in there? Just because I want to sort of explain that the firms involved in City Century and City Century itself, we're particularly concerned about your first year to make sure you got onboarded effectively and impactfully. So we have a really lovely welcome tea in your first month, and that involves being in the Ironmongers Hall. It's a really lovely old hall and some nice speeches. We run a conference for you as well, which has drinks at the Law Society afterwards, and usually the president of the Law Society and sometimes the Solicitor General and those sorts of people come along. And we also run awards. So each year we have an awards thing which solicitor apprentices can enter as well. So that's a way to recognise the good work that's being done in and around and by City Century. And then finally, as we say, we have the Guildhall thing tomorrow. So that is being keynote speech by firm-wide managing partner from Lewis Silkin, one of our firms, also by Tunde, who is the person that invented the UK Social Mobility Awards and the whole concept of Social Mobility Day. And we've got a couple of judges coming to that as well. So we work really hard, and then you also get access to the City of London Solicitors Company as well, and they run loads of events as well. We've got a really big hijabi solicitor apprentice community who seem to be taking up over the football thing there and really winning, which we love. So we're really into making sure that you become part of a really great community, and we want you not just to mix with your peers, we want you to mix with people all around as well, so that you have those points of influence. If I can give you one example of a solicitor apprentice at A&O, which is another one of our firms, his firm said to him after a little while, "Oh, we should get you a mentor." And he said, "Oh, I've got one." And he said, "Who have you got?" And he'd got, I think it was the global head of banking, which was like the third most important partner in this massive law firm, to mentor him, right? So we know that that person's going to be successful because they've made those connections, and we try and afford that all for you. Sorry
That's
to
great,
dominate, but I just think so here's the other thing I would say is, when you're looking at firms that you might want to join, have a look at those ones that are a part of City Century, because they are doing something for the greater good. It's beyond their own firm. It's about changing a sector. It's about creating a really strong community. It's about not being a tick box exercise. So I would be asking them, are you part of this initiative, and seeing if that's something that they can say yes to.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, conscious of time then. So just final thing from me, massive thank you to the CMS team. Brilliant episodes. I will double check my emails. I've seen a few of them have flown through with a couple of questions about timings for the next session. So as I said, on your original email where you've got your joining link, you should have a timetable of the next sessions. If you haven't, please feel free to contact me and I can send those through to make sure that we can attend as many sessions as possible to get that certificate. Otherwise, again, just a massive thank you to CMS. Anything else from yourself, Patrick?
No, just CMS, you are rocking it. Whatever you're doing with your recruitment, it's working. So keep it in place. Hannah, Elisa, Sanjida, Latifa, Sophia, Sarah, I hope I've got all of you there. I really want to thank you for that. I can't imagine that a year ago you would think that you would be doing something like this to over 100 younger students and persuading them in. So I hope that you're all